Hey everyone, Power Stroke Maintenance here, and today I wanted to talk about the importance of rotating your tires correctly, because I just had a little bit of a screw up, and so I wanted to talk about it so that you guys don't do what I did. Today we are in beautiful Wolfboro, New Hampshire, and I have just driven about 3,000 miles collectively around New Hampshire for various film projects, but then I also drove to New Hampshire from Denver, which is about a 2,000 mile trip. And I was getting a weird vibration with the Cooper AT3 XLTs. I've had them balanced 3 times since I bought them, and I bought them like last September, and they were also wearing really funny. And so I was talking to my brother, who is a mechanic, and he is a fleet mechanic, or was a fleet mechanic, and now does his own work for himself. We were talking in the car because we had a lot of time. We were driving out to New Hampshire, and he said, well, maybe the reason they're wearing funny is because the shops you've been taking the tires to aren't rotating them correctly. And so I was immediately like, that could be it, because I've taken my truck to 2 different shops to get the tires rotated, one in New Hampshire and one in Colorado, and it seemed like the tires on either side of the truck were wearing funny, but the front and the rear were wearing similarly, as long as they were on the same side. And so our theory was that the shops had only been rotating the tires front to back and back to front, but hadn't been crossing them, so the tires weren't actually spending time on the opposite side of the vehicle. Now, the tires on my truck are bi-directional, so they can roll either way. They are, again, the Cooper AT3 XLTs. They've been great so far. They're 35-1250s, load range F, and I love how they ride. I love how they drive. They're great in the snow and in the dirt. Not so good in the mud, but the only big issue I've had with them so far is that it's hard to keep them balanced. And I actually did hear that also from another gentleman who commented on one of my posts saying that he had to get rid of them after 25K because he couldn't keep them balanced. But I'm wondering now, because of this, if it was because the tires weren't being rotated correctly by the shop that was doing the rotation. So we're gonna head over to the truck and I'll show you what I mean. This will be a little hard to see through the GoPro, but if I put the camera down like this, you'll notice that the back half of these knobs are higher than the front. Now, these have been wearing down because I actually rotated them myself recently, but what was happening was these are now on the passenger side. They were on the driver's side, and the front of the tire was wearing less than the back. So if you, it's really hard to see, but you can probably see it here. Like that front, or this now is in the back, but it was the front part of this rubber knob was wearing less than the back part of the rubber knob. And so I noticed that, and it was also similar near the center of the tire. And I run my tire pressure between 50 and 55 PSI, so I get, normal wear across the top. I did do a chalk test to kind of figure out where I sat in terms of getting that normal wear. But we noticed this, and on top of this, I've been getting the tires rotated, but they just haven't been wearing great. And so I still haven't ruled out that maybe I got a crappy tire from Cooper. It's quite possible that happens, because sometimes, the quality just isn't there. And I know there was another gentleman that also said that, his Coopers were crap and he had to replace them, which is, again, totally understandable. But part of it, I think, was because the reason they were wearing unevenly like this is because the tires were only being mounted and rotated on one side of the truck. You can see it a little bit more on the front of this tire. It's really hard to see with the GoPro here, so I do apologize. But like, you'll notice, like, that, I guess you can kind of see it here. There's basically like a shark, almost like a shark fin where this sticks up, and the sipes themselves are also like sticking up a little bit too. And so I did swap the sides. I just crossed the fronts. So I put the one that was on the driver's side on the passenger side, and the passenger side on the driver's side, and I crossed the backs. And then I'm gonna go back to how you should rotate your tires if they're all directional or bi-directional, which is you do, especially if you're doing it at home, you do the fronts to the back, backs to the front, and then you cross the backs. And I want to make it clear that I'm not blaming the shops that I went to. I want to make it clear that this is my screw up. I shouldn't have assumed that by taking it to 2 different shops, they would know where the tires were at in terms of their rotations. So something my brother likes to talk about a lot is like, the best person to work on your car is you. And so I shouldn't have delegated the responsibility of making sure my tires wore correctly to a shop just because I was being lazy and I didn't want to have to jack up my truck and I wanted to take it there and pay someone 20 bucks to rotate my tires. Like, you just can't assume that it's going to be done the way you want or done correctly. It should be, but that's not always the case. And if you're going to different shops all across the country, you can't assume that they're going to know where you're at in your tire rotation. I also didn't have my tires marked, which was another screw up. So guys, this is all to say that when it comes to tires, especially if you have 35s, make sure they're being rotated correctly. Make sure that the tire is spending equal amounts of time in every position around the vehicle, not just on one side, because that's the mistake that I made and that the shops I took this to made. And so that's what I think is happening with these tires and why they started to wear kind of funny, because I'm doing a ton of miles. So now that they're in a different position on the vehicle and hopefully wearing more normally, I will report back on these Coopers. I'm gonna do a review on the tire, but this video was just to tell you, make sure that your tires are being rotated correctly. And if you start to get abnormal wear patterns, or if they aren't staying balanced, maybe take a look at or talk to the tech or look at how you're rotating them and see if maybe you should change that up or increase the intervals that you need to rotate them from 5,000 to less miles, or maybe you get more wear so you can do it every 10,000 miles. I do mine every 5,000, but don't make the same mistake I made, and be sure you're rotating your tires correctly, especially if they're not directional. If they're bi-directional, make sure they're spending equal amounts of time on every side of the vehicle. All right, well, that's gonna do it for me. Again, just wanted to share where I was at in my tire wear journey. I appreciate you all checking out this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.